invocation by Mr. Clay Scarborough.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come together. We thank you for this opportunity just to look ahead, to make decisions. Thank you most of all for your Son. And we just ask for your guidance. You have given us charge over many, many students, and many, many students more to come. That you would help us with the directions and the wisdom and discernment of the decisions that need to be made tonight and in the future. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Those present tonight are Becky Stevenson, Joel Frederick, Donna Gillum, and Dan Reinhardt. Those absent, Melissa Sartain, Clint Shive, and Dr. Lacey Gosh. This announcement is that this meeting has been duly called and that the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.043 of the Texas Government Code. We will go into public participation. Has anyone signed up? No. Okay. Moving on to 5, Construction and Bond 2021 and 2024 update. AGCM Project Manager Melissa Noon.
Good evening, members of the board. You don't want me to speak up. Members of the board, Dr. Epley, I'm happy to be here this evening. Our overall schedule is still tracking. We have had rain, but there's been enough float and or Saturday work to make up for days lost when we were rained out. As far as athletic goes, see our track coming along with the dang it, I tried to remember the baton lanes. The grandstands to the right, can't see from here, but you can see it when you get up close, the visitor grandstands are currently in progress. To the left, we have parking lot tours. The guys honestly have been ready as soon as there's a dry day to do some kind of concrete work when they can. In the field house in the back there, we're doing interior finishes, so although today no outside work, they were doing above ceiling, painting, putting in ceilings. The structure here you can see for the scoreboard. Again, when you drive by, you can see the scoreboard up now. This view, I was trying to capture the tennis courts for y'all. So we have half of them coated and colored now. Our visitor amenities building is pretty much done. We have furniture scheduled for delivery August 10th. And then golf, as soon as it gets dry enough, it's just been too wet for them to start digging in that golf area. As far as chiller replacement, junior high refresh project, we're still replacing out controls. They probably have a little more than half the building replaced. Here you see buildings 400 and 500, framing of the walls, painting of the corridors, and 400 ceilings getting ready to go up if they haven't already started that today. And then as we're uncovering things, we're meeting weekly. So we're trying to stay ahead of the game as much as possible in communications daily with the architects as we're coming across whatnot, like last month where the wire's above ceiling. So we're trying to deal with those issues as soon as we can. I thought this was a cool shot from the elementary when you come around the corner on East Martindale. Growing season, right? We have the corn going and you can see the cranes with the steel going up there. We successfully had the last foundation pour last Thursday, and it was the gym area. So when you look at the overview where we were from May, where we were from June, that bottom right corner is now poured out. So steel erection in progress, and then of course all the trim out work. We have CMU walls going up at the kitchen area. I feel like something I didn't touch on. Elementary intermediate refresh. So in these actual buildings, that's next summer, unless we can coordinate some things during the year, but we'll play that by ear. We'll coordinate with campuses and principals if there is, like there's steel that goes here in the theater, how do we need to do that? And maybe that's something that waits till the summer. However, there's a kiln that needs to get installed, so we'll work those types of things out. And the actual annex, we have that demo. It looked very similar to Building 500 that you saw last month with all the old wiring above ceiling. So been working hand in hand again, meeting every week with Kaylor and then communicating with the architects on, as we're uncovering things that need to get fixed, well, we have the opportunity to fix them. Are there any questions? Did I go too fast? Did I miss anything that y'all need me to touch on?
It's exciting, it looks great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Note that Dr. Lacey Gosh entered the meeting at 6:05 p.m. We will be moving on to action items. Letter A, consider and take possible action regarding the approval of program management services for the 2026 bond projects.
Okay, board members, in your packet, you have the details of this proposed approval of program management services. I did answer a question in our Q&A related to that. I think you will see that if we, as we assess what is happening with our tax base, and if we do get an influx of industry to change kind of the landscape of our bonding capacity, I think we will likely come to the board for a construction leader that we would still probably outsource some construction management positioning, but for now we are sending this recommendation to you to continue with AGCM with their proposed management services. So open it up to any questions you guys may have.
I already asked mine.
You did a great question.
Do we have to keep Melissa? I mean, do we get to keep Melissa?
Is that what question we have to?
Do we get to?
Now you know why your table fell earlier. I've been here.
I will.
Please, we get to keep her.
Yes, and I will say that is the benefit of the service of AGCM, is that we do have that premium service of being able to say, hey, we want to work with this person and they're giving us good service, or if this person is not meeting our expectations, maybe they'd be a better fit on a different project, and that flexibility I think has been something we've really enjoyed. And yes, Melissa would continue to work with us. All right.
Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the board approval of AGCM as program manager for 2026 bond projects based on their demonstrated competence and qualifications, and further delegate authority to the superintendent to negotiate and execute a contract for a fair and reasonable price in a form approved by legal counsel.
Second.
Motion was made by Becky Stevenson and second by Dan Reinhardt. All those in favor? The motion passes 5-0 with Becky Stevenson, Joel Frederick, Donna Gillum, Dr. Lacey Gosh, and Dan Reinhardt voting yes. Moving on to action item B. Consider and possible action to approve adoption of prevailing wage rates for the district 2026 bond projects.
Board, we also had a question about this related to Davis-Bacon. There is a way to survey if you want to see if you can get a different rate than Davis-Bacon. The advice of council was that that's a difficult process. It's a long process. I did share the details of that process. Of course, if the board would like us to go through that process, we can do that. but we do recognize legal counsel's support that the purpose of the wage rate is to make sure that the workers have a fair rate, not necessarily to get the best price for the district. So just presenting this to you that we would go ahead and adopt those prevailing wage rates. But if you would like to not adopt them and go through that survey process, we would need to start that immediately because we do not want to delay the progress on our bond project.
So I was the one that asked the question, of course, right? And so, and I don't know if you saw, I went to go type a response and then
Yeah.
I stopped because
Yeah.
I got sidetracked. So here we go. First off, any contractor or subcontractor worth their salt these days is already paying a fair wage rate because the employee market is already super tight as it is. I mean, we're fighting for the same people all the time.
Right.
And so I would also argue that many GCs and subs are already paying that level of wage. What it gets is it becomes a paperwork. You know, when subs bid a Davis-Bacon job, because of the amount of paperwork, the certified payroll, they put in extra money.
Got it.
And so subsequently, some GCs also then have to add extra money, you know, on top of their fees, but then they add extra money for their part of that. So I don't know what that number looks like. I just know that easily if you have 40 to 60 subs on a project, you could say, I mean, if it's a $65 million project and 40% of it's labor, what's that? 26 million-ish in labor, and if you save 1% of that, it's a lot of money for one project. So that's why I asked the question.
Sure.
I don't know what a survey costs to do. I just know this is something I talked about on the long-term planning committee and the last year and stuff like that. So I'm just looking for a way to save some dollars because we already, if we're going through the best value piece of, which I think is what we chose last time, we go through the best value subs and GCs are going to pay a fair wage. So anyway, that's kind of why I asked the question and my thoughts on it.
So I need to double check, but prevailing wage rates needs to be accepted every time it's updated in a new bond program. So although the electrical helper was surveyed and went through the process as Dr. Epley explained, I'm pretty sure, and again, I'm not good at saying, let me get back to you. What I want to say is, I believe it's in Texas government code that we have to
Yes.
have Davis-Bacon, so.
We have to have a survey done. We don't necessarily have to have a
For the
Davis-Bacon.
specific position, so like electrical didn't have a helper wage, right? I'm not sure in plumbing, you'll have journeyman and you'll have whatever, but if you have a helper on site, you're gonna pay him whatever the wage that's listed is, and so.
They might have a helper, but a lot of them have apprentices. So there's apprenticeship is a line item on a lot of the craftsmen. You have a plumber, then you have apprenticeship. Or if it's not on there, then they have to be enrolled in a Department of Labor certified program, which then will lower the cost, but then that jacks up the sub cost. So I'm just saying, across the board, you have 40-something classifications. How much is it? Is it worth spending the money to save the money? I don't know, but I think it's worth the discussion.
The challenge was there's no equivalent projects in the area because we had to Derek battled this in further 2021, but he couldn't even utilize what Comal ISD had utilized, which was a hybrid of
Sure.
different. So those were some of the challenges. Is that nobody in Guadalupe County is building a school, a $65 million brand new school.
Yeah, because Comal has one different wage rate than New Braunfels has.
Right.
And so,
And not to throw them under the bus, because when I got here, that was the first thing I thought of, because we had done it in that district. What our attorney is saying is that was not done properly. And so to do it properly is quite extensive and would cost money. And so her advice was, it's not worth it in the long run, and that is why most districts don't. I'm not saying at the end of the day, I think we're all on the same page here, we don't really know. It could potentially save us, but we couldn't do it the way we did it
See,
in Como.
and I don't know, I mean, I agree there's no $65 million project in the Navarro School District, I understand that. But what I also don't agree with was her statement about most districts. I mean, we're on 5 projects right now in different schools that don't have a Davis-Bacon grade. So, I mean,
Remodel or new construction?
Ma'am?
Remodel or new construction? New.
yeah,
Charter, not public?
public,
Okay,
so
Yeah,
there's my.
and that's,
Northside ISD, Central ISD, Elma Heights ISD, all
Well, those are
non-Davis-Bacon.
big ISDs that
Correct.
probably
Yeah.
years ago were able to.
So I just, if it, and just in our savings alone, from our perspective, one contract was $250,000 in
Yeah.
savings. So,
Are we talking about just the one position, electrical helper?
There, I believe you have 2 items
Yeah.
on your agenda, right?
We're
One
talking-
is just for this is for the prevailing of total.
The total.
And then you should have another one on there for the electrical helper.
yeah, so Davis-Bacon covers all crafts.
Except for I don't think the
The helper.
Bacon has the electrical helper.
That's
Whereas
why.
a plumber may have an apprentice.
They don't have an apprentice, you have to enroll them in an apprenticeship course, just like electrical would. So somebody went and fought for an electrical helper
Yeah.
survey is what happened.
right.
And so they have a general laborer classification within Davis-Bacon, but DOL doesn't recognize general labor as an electrical helper. So they had to go fight for the electrical helper
To add
wage
to
rate.
it.
Makes
And so,
sense.
but to get away with it, to have an apprentice or a helper in any other craft, you have to be enrolled. That person on the job has to be enrolled in the Department of Labor. It's a huge paperwork fiasco from a Sub and GC
It sounds like
perspective.
it.
So,
So I have a question about something I think I heard you say. So when we're talking about other ISDs having them, you said they probably had them for years and years. So once you do one, you just keep it? That doesn't sound like that would be right. It seems like you would have to update it. And is this like a one-time survey? We do a survey, we identify what our wage rates would be.
And
we
so
don't
that's
use
like
this,
your
and then-
electrical helpers coming before you again for our 2026 bond
So you would just
program.
evaluate, once you did the survey, you would then just evaluate individual jobs
Those
or titles based on what you needed to hire at that particular point to see if that was still on point from your original survey or not. And so it gives the district more flexibility to determine what we would pay versus,
It would, yeah,
I guess, more of
yeah, it would give
a
the
unionized type
subcontract-
listing? Is that what I'm
What,
kind of reading here?
and then what the lawyer is saying is that the AG is going to rule in favor of the fair rate for the worker over a discount that the district has negotiated. So that was why she had said, it's not, the work that you're gonna put in would not necessarily be worth it. Again, if we feel like we want to do this, I just don't know the time that it will take for the survey. I don't know the cost if we are going to put that onto AGCM to do the work for. And then I think the concern is finding those equitable, they have to be, and this is where we did not do this when we did this in my previous district, which is why she's saying it wasn't correctly done. We just went with any building project that we could find that was similar. She's saying it has to be within Navarro ISD. And that's where I don't know how we do that. I'm being honest about that. We would have to
Because
research
the
further.
survey is for going out to companies that are building these apartment buildings and saying, how much are you paying your plumbing helper?
Right.
It's not,
But we have like the McDonald's, we have the AutoZone, we have the apartments,
That's
we
also-
have the gas station, but like an equitable project like a school,
in public.
yeah, I don't.
And I know she's legal counsel, and I know she's
Yeah.
there to protect us, so this is not, I'm just gonna say, living real life, East Central hasn't had a $150 million project to compare rates to, so how did they get their wage rate down?
Right.
You know, and then I'm gonna go back to, you can say all you want to about having a fair wage rate, but the truth of the matter is, I know several, I sit on a board with several subcontractors and GCs, and this is the exact same conversation that came up, is we are already paying what the Davis-Bacon wage is, if not within pennies.
Right.
So that argument's gone. It just becomes a matter of paperwork, logistics, putting the right it just becomes more expensive. It is.
Sure.
So I just don't, that's kind of where I'm at on that. I don't know how much it would cost you to do the survey. I don't know. I think, how does somebody like East Central get a wage rate when they don't have a similar project in their area? I don't know. Unless they surveyed, something, work on the dam or something like that, but that'd been a union project and that would have sent the money straight to the roof. So I don't know. I don't know. I just felt like her response was,
Yeah. Didn't jive with what you know.
what life
Yeah.
is, what I'm out there living life as.
Sure, absolutely. And I respect that. That's where, honestly, I think obviously we go with Davis-Bacon, we move forward, but if we want to do the survey or try to attempt to do the survey, if we can't succeed with the survey, we would be coming back to you and asking for this wage rate again.
Sure.
But we can attempt to do that.
Can we get a quote? I mean, who would do the survey? The lawyer sounded like, in the response, it sounded like she would be the one doing the survey, but it would be you guys.
Well, based on what you just shared with me, that would be my go-to, is to find out what those rates are that are out there and how they were put in place for other districts.
Which, as we talked through it with Derek, he had attempted to do that with the 21 bond and was not able to be successful. So we could try it again.
Would all of this slow down our progress on the project?
It's going to take time to get the wage rates before we can put out the bids to say this is the wage rates we follow.
Right. I don't
And
know.
once again, we bid a job that had a wage rate, a Davis-Bacon wage rate in it, and then they took it out in the middle of the bid. So slowing down, it all depends on who's. It didn't slow down. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, obviously though, y'all would, to be fair to you, I got really loud all of a sudden, I'm sorry. I'm not yelling, I promise. You would have preferred though, I'm sure, to know what the wage rate was when y'all were bidding. That was all I was thinking of, is I wouldn't want to throw that on a contractor or somebody who was trying to bid, is like midway through say.
And it was a VE option we offered them, and they were able to move it through really quickly.
Sure.
Within
That's probably
10 days.
Came about on the 21. And, I mean, quite frankly, being from the subworld myself, you find the category your people are gonna fall in anyway, so.
So our recommendation was to go with the Davis-Bacon. But if we want to vote to not accept that recommendation, we would then need to go research further how to do the survey. And
right
then
now
bring
for-
back whatever we are able to find. If we're able to actually make it happen, or bring back to the board, no, we were not able to make it happen, we're bringing back the recommendation for Davis-Bacon, correct?
Correct. And for right now, for 2026 planning, so you know, like we have an RFQ out there for civil with a goal to get that secure bus parking sooner than later. I don't remember the timeline off the top of my head. But that means we get the civil engineer, we start design, and until this is ready, we can't put out for pricing until we have those rates. Or we put it out with the caveat that it could be Davis-Bacon, however, if you're sub-bidding, you're gonna wanna know what the rates need to be. Same going for our CMAR and our estimation process for the junior high expansion. I'm not against it, and I'll do
Yeah.
whatever, like, I'm just, I know
No,
it
you're
was
just
really
educating
tough
us on
from
the
beginning.
steps.
Yes, but can we put it out as Davis-Bacon and offer an addendum if the survey comes in favorable? Can we offer an addendum?
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is not a one-time project like Navarro has with how many projects upcoming. I know in our long-range plan, you've got one coming every 2 years for the next however many years based on our growth. Is it something we could adopt now to keep this project going, but we also require the survey, and then going forward after that, we can figure out if it's better to go with the other rates versus this, that way it doesn't slow this project, but it sets us up better, knowing we're not just a one-project district.
Yeah.
And then it gives us some options, and if it ends up saving us money, that's great, because then that's other funds to be used for unallocated interest or other things in our bond projects.
I think Paul wants to say something.
Just you were asking how East Central did it. And
Yeah.
I did a quick little search to see.
Thank you.
I think what they may have done was use the San Antonio area prevailing wage survey. So there was a survey for all the San Antonio area that they could, I think, that they piggybacked on. They did not do their own. From reading what I'm reading, that's what it appears to be.
So it just wasn't inside their district.
And again,
Sure,
we're back to whether or not
absolutely.
that is correct or the right way to do it or
Right.
not. That's another question.
Right.
I'm just saying, that's what it looks like in terms of what they may have done. And there's, I mean, that little San Antonio area prevailing wage thing, there's pluses and minuses all over it. Some of them very big differences. But whether or not that is the correct way to do it is another question. Because they're using all of San Antonio versus, versus inside their district. So,
Yeah, which is
where we're running into the issue.
Sure.
Of finding that comparison.
I'm just looking, a couple hundred here, a couple hundred there.
No.
Buses here, buses there.
100%,
Yeah.
we were able to save some dollars when we did it in my previous district. It's just the legal counsel telling us we didn't do it correctly, and that the AG would not support that. And so obviously, always want us to be doing things, the legal way and taking that legal advice. I don't think any of us here are trying to not do the legal correct way. So it's just a matter of us saying, we would vote for the Davis-Bacon tonight, but also authorize me to go ahead and attempt the survey to be able to then go and use those, come back and say, we'd now like to adopt the survey and be able to do that for future projects if that survey was able to reveal that.
That keeps you
I agree with
warm.
that, yeah.
I mean, I would agree with that, just
Yeah.
that's
So,
the world.
Just,
we do
yeah.
have a special meeting on June 29th, is in 2 weeks, is that is that enough time?
What's the deadline for board documents?
The week prior, so I think we would probably have to do it in July if you had a survey by then.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Couple
would,
months, probably.
I think that would be too
Yeah.
fast.
That'd be a comparison of trying to figure out
It would be a lot.
which
Yeah.
wage rates are even able to.
Yeah.
And I would work with you and Destiny on, are we doing this the proper way? Because, yeah, to spend a lot of time and effort just to have the lawyer say, you got those numbers from something that shouldn't count at all, is definitely not
Well,
what
if
we
we're,
want
if
to
we're
do.
getting ready to go bid out a project, and that's why we're adopting this right now,
Yes.
obviously, that would come before we would come back with the survey. So I don't know that there's any immediate need that we have to have it at the end of June or even by July, but take our time and do it right, and that way you bring something back maybe in August or somewhere in there to say, okay, going forward for other future projects, even if this one gets bid out this way,
Yes,
Sure.
we have the opportunity to.
you have the opportunity to do that. If you have it by July, great, but,
Yeah, I could support that.
So do we need to add something to the motion, or?
Yes, if
To
you'd
do
like to
that.
add the piece that you're authorizing the superintendent to conduct a wage rate survey,
You're the smart one.
you may add that.
That's all you. You got it, Jill,
So I hear-
if you want.
Let me read it. That's Lacey's got to figure out because it's her idea.
my ISI, okay.
I'm just trying to read.
Okay, well, I think I can make up something. Okay, I move to approve the adoption of the Davis-Bacon prevailing wage rate for Guadalupe County, Texas, and the additional rate for electrical helper as presented by administration for the 2026 bond construction project, and authorize the superintendent of schools to examine a survey for wage rates for other construction projects.
Second.
The motion was made by Dr. Lacey Gosh and seconded by Dan Reinhardt. We will now vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion passes 5-0 with Becky Stevenson, Jill Frederick, Dr. Lacey Gosh, Donna Gilman, Dan Reinhardt, all voting yes. We will move move on to action item C. Review and possible approval of order authorizing the issuance of one or more series of the district's unlimited tax school building bond in the maximum amount of $65 million, levying an ad valorem tax for the payment thereof, delegating the authority to district staff to approve and execute related documents and other matters in connection therewith.
All right, that was a lot of words to basically say we can start to sell the bond. So we are very blessed tonight to have Dwayne Westerman with us to help answer any questions you may have.
Good evening, President, members of the board. Came casual tonight, but we're ready to move forward with the issuance of bonds. We've applied for the permanent school fund guarantee. We've got that step moving, and tonight we're wanting to take this action so that we have the flexibility to move and to act when we are able to. Obviously, we are still wanting to get the certified taxable values for the district for this year so we can determine exactly what we can issue and not get ourselves in trouble as far as tax rate and being able to go forward with that. So tonight just gives us the ability to continue working on official statement, continue putting things together as best we can until we can get those final values and know what we're ready to move forward. Your approval, as you've done in the past, would then give or delegate that authority for the final okay on the bonds to the superintendent and CFO as you go forward. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or discussion?
It's not as exciting as prevailing wages. Or maybe it is. I don't know.
So, just real quick, it says on the action item about ordering, whatever the word is, ordering 85 million, the remaining 85 million, or, excuse me, 65 million. Well, so what's the, but on the order, it looks like there's a balance of like 40 on the other one?
We got 35 on one, and then the new one is 65, so.
Reorder those separate?
They're not gonna be issued, they are separate things, but when we issue the bonds, they will all go as one, and then it's up to me to try to keep track of them separately, which is a lot of fun. Which is what we did, what the last issue we did was included money that came from 21, the original 21, and 24. So that 65 million, 30 million, I think it was 30 million was from the prior 21 bonding, or 21 election, and 35 million was from the current.
I think it's safe to say we're definitely doing the 25 million from the
The
first
35
election.
The 35 million,
yes,
35
you're right.
million.
Yes,
The
first.
35
The
million
35
first.
million we will do for, absolutely, we will be doing that. We're hoping we can get 30 million out of the next one, which will keep us moving forward.
Okay, I guess I guess the basics of my question is that table. I just don't understand how the table works, but
Well,
I never got around to asking that
That's
question.
okay.
I don't know which table you're looking at.
It's on the, it's the order.
It's
The
on
actual
the, it's
order?
on the front page where they show the amount originally authorized. We have from the 73,700,000, we've issued 38,700,000. And so this isn't filled in the rest of it yet because we don't know exactly what we've
Okay.
issued. That's one of the
Right.
delegated parts once it's determined.
In fact, I sent them a bunch of filled in, changed paperwork today on some stuff that they had provided to me so that they could start editing the documents.
So this, part of this document is blank, and then we'll have blanks that you're delegating that final approval to superintendent, CFO, and board president at a later date when we actually sell the bonds.
And when we actually have a good idea of what we will be able to sell and stay within that 50-cent limit.
Otherwise, when we sell, we have to time it exactly when you have a board meeting, and it can get sometimes a little.
And we're trying to look at the timing of that issue at the same thing, whether or not it's necessary. And in fact, part of what I'm sitting here is I'm working on cash flow to see what cash is available and how long we can last until we need to have that money in place with what we have already issued and what we can shift and use from other funds, especially on some of the projects that would have been covered with any of the bond money. So, and so what is available, and then if necessary, what might be able to be taken out of the general fund. Yes, you know, you already passed last session, the last meeting, you passed that authorization to reimburse ourselves. So that gives us the option to look at when we can issue these bonds and make sure that we get what we need and we have a very good, and we get the best rate potentially. Because hopefully the rates will come down a little bit by the end of the year.
So the only question I had that I heard out of all that then is you sent stuff back and forth today to get a new order? Is that-
No, it's not a new order.
Oh, okay, so this is-
They're
I don't
drafting.
understand the lingo, so.
They're already drafting the official statement that
Okay.
goes with a bond issue.
So this
That-
order is what we're approving?
This order is what you're
Okay.
approving, but that official statement is what, but some of the information on that official statement will be filled in on the order when we get to that point.
Okay. Thank you.
You're,
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dwayne, appreciate it. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the district's bond order.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Dan Reinhardt and second by Joel Frederick. All those in favor? Excuse me.
Very good.
I don't want to say
The
my name
motion
around
passes,
here.
the motion passes 5-0.
Did I make it more interesting? Did I make it more interesting for you?
You did, you did.
Okay.
Put a little excitement in it, thank you.
The motion passed 5-0 with Becky Stevenson, Dan Reinhardt, Dr. Lacey Gosh, Donna Gillum, and Joel Frederick approving the vote. We will move on to reports. Superintendent's report enrollment.
And what I did for you in this action sheet is just give you our latest numbers as of 5/21/26, which we ended the year at 3,091 students. That's a growth of 328 students from the end of the previous school year to the current ending year. And that was 142 students over the peak demographic projection on the last day of school. So we didn't have a huge turnout for our intent to return declaration process. I would be a little worried if only 724 people were returning, but I did want you to be aware that we did do that process. We will be doing multiple communications throughout the summer because we are shifting our student information system, as you know, to Skyward, and that registration process will happen online. It will be a much more streamlined process than we've had in the past, but it is a new process, so we want to make sure everybody knows, and so I'll be keeping you aware of where we are on enrollment as those numbers are coming in.
Any questions? We're going to move on to the district financial reports. All right, we're going to move on to C, budget update for the 2026-2027 school year.
Sorry, he's talking by. If you would like to skip to the next one, we'll double back, we can do that.
We'll move on to the collaborative vision quarterly report, Panther progress.
So each of you have a hard copy of our latest installment of Panther Progress. This is our fourth quarter Panther Progress, ending out the year. Very proud of several things in this, and obviously starting first with our very own CFO testifying before the Texas House Committee on Public Education and the financing. I think that his testimony absolutely grew legs, and I heard it several times in different news media outlets over the last few weeks, as well as reading it referenced in articles where school districts were talking about cuts having to be made. I think what made Mr. Newhoff's testimony so powerful is that he actually lives in that world and could speak to direct numbers, where a lot of times superintendents are speaking to the House and you know, it's things like we need more money, but there's not really a quantitative piece to that, and I think Paul did an excellent job with that, so very grateful that he was there to speak specifically to how this has impacted our district. and as they consider funding going into the 90th legislature. You're going to see a lot of celebrations. Of course, we do name our district teacher of the year in this time of year, as well as recognize annual awards. The compensation plan that you approved is also noted here as part of our compensation goals of recruiting the best and retaining the best, as well as some of the wins in our student attendance and employee attendance, which were also goals that the board set. You're also going to see some key strategic plans that we went over with you as we continued our LASSO grants with Texas Education Agency to build in more blended learning opportunities and interventions. And so you're seeing in this particular quarterly report those ending benchmarks right before you went into STAR testing, and those preliminary STAR data we shared with you, and we'll certainly be talking as we evaluate board goals on the 29th. But we focused on the Q4 with how we ended before the testing. Also just our big win in CCMR with bringing on our person for CCMR and coordinating our efforts with the academic team. We saw a major jump from 71% in the previous year to 95% anticipated. Again, we're always in lagging data when it comes to CCMR, but that's huge, especially since the state of Texas is now going to shift how we calculate CCMR. And so that's going to complicate things for us and all districts across the state. But we made great headway in that. So we noted that, as well as our graduation rate, again, seeing the largest graduating class coming out this last year. And also focusing on our special education program, which continues to grow, as does special education across the state. And then we also highlighted, of course, our program updates, not only our extracurricular activities, but our UIL academics. And you can see the successes that we gained, as well as some recognitions and distinctions in those areas, also in CTE. So that's all chronicled, as well as our community partnerships and the plans that we set as part of our goals. The human capital plan, the capital replacement plan, and as you receive that in preparation of our June 29th meeting, you'll be able to see the progress within those plans. They'll be embedded into the goal sheet for you. That also includes our emergency protocols, and then obviously a major win from this quarter, which was the passage of the $65 million bond and moving forward with those projects. So just wanted to, again, celebrate all of the great work of our teams here in Navarro ISD, and this will be digitally posted for our community to see, our families to see, and again, it's a great recruiting tool as our campus leaders and district leaders work to finish filling out any of those final positions we still have. So I'll take any questions, and then we'll delve back now that it looks like Paul has rejoined us.
Are there any comments or questions? All right, we'll go back to the budget update for the 2026-2027 school year.
Sorry about that. I don't get a chance to talk to him very often, and I needed to have that conversation and talk to him about what we need to plan for. So I've updated the budget numbers based on the latest projections I've got. By the way, Omar's on version 12 of his spreadsheet already for projecting what revenues will be for this coming year. So right now, again, we are still projecting an excess. We're of slight excess for 26-27. We had some, and actually it looks a little even better than future years at the moment, based on what we are projecting, what we may need. So that's good. This year, projecting out that we will have a significant increase in our fund balance, but that is largely from those funds that are that Pope Consulting has generate back for us from prior year state funding for changes in property values. So they've they've been an excellent addition to help us keep moving. So I expect it again to occur in 2025. How much, if it'll be that much again. This is 4 years worth in those not dollars. So we're going to keep pushing forward on that as well each year. But right now, again, we're on a positive on where we will end the year. I'm continuing to go through and detail out the budget and get better numbers and better projections over the next week or two. I have meetings with our insurance staff, and we got stuff from the appraisal district today on what their budgets will be and what that impact is going to be on us. So those are fairly large numbers and fairly impacted fairly on a large scale. So that'll help us get to the better numbers. Debt service, right now we continue to project using that 50 cents tax rate over the next few years. Talking to Dwayne, one of the things we had the conversation was that we don't issue at the end of this year, the end of the fiscal year in August, and we don't include it in that 50 cent rate, and we can put it off until December, somewhere in there. Then we will probably come to you in August with a projection of doing some defeatings on some debt early, and keep it at that 50 cent rate, but try to get rid of some of the debt earlier. So that's one of the conversations I was having with him to make sure he understood where I was going and where I was thinking. And in our child nutrition services, we continue to, Carla continues to do an excellent job in keeping that, really watching it very carefully and keeping it under control. And we project again that we'll be in good shape over that for the next few years. In fact, she's almost once again, very close to being slightly over what she's allowed in terms of her fund balance. So right now, everything, we continue to look very good, continue to refine those numbers as we come back to you. Happy to answer any questions.
What does she use the fund balance for, like the nutrition?
She can use it only for inter-program, but sometimes she has bought some equipment. She's used her to buy equipment, but to buy equipment, she has to get specific approval from the HHS. So one of the things, in fact, though, she can't buy the tables and chair seating for in her child nutrition program. Anything like that has to be done, but all the kitchen equipment, things like that, once she gets approval, she can purchase that, and that's what she's done over the last couple of years. She's done some improvements with those, doing that way.
My question is more will revolve around 27, 28.
Okay.
I know everything's wackadoodle. That's the professional term, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'd love to have used
The
that with the
legislature,
legislature.
yes.
So, but how do we start planning now to not be in deficit? How can we help? How do we do that?
Well, okay, I will say this.
Because it looks like there's some gaps or something like that.
Well, there are potentially, once we get there, we don't know, again, we don't know what the legislature is going to do. We're certainly hopeful that they will do some increases in funding that will allow us to, I mean, like as she said, I tried to get, they asked me for a number and I said, for the, those insurance and other things, and I said, I'm spending $700 and something bucks per enrollment, and you only gave me 106. So there's a gap. If you want to cover it, you actually give us some money that will actually help us do that, increase that number. So we'll see what they do. I think that I was a little encouraged that there were some of them on there. Some of them always push back a little bit, but I'm encouraged that I think they will try to do the right thing and try to help us. I think especially hearing from some of them as they were discussing how off numbers were for a lot of school districts in terms of what they were told what they were going to get versus what they're actually seeing as they go through these processes for the last year and this year. So there are some big gap questions that TDA is gonna have to answer, and that the legislature needs to get answers to, so that I think they can make sure we do get the funding we need.
And I think from a systems point of view internally, you know, we have a lot of things we don't control, with the exception of advocacy, right, through what the legislature is going to do or what TA is going to do. But what we control internally, I think staff will tell you, we are incredibly critical when it comes to talking about staffing and the staffing need, because that is the biggest chunk of where you're going to make up your deficit. So rather than you know, kind of blindly saying, you know, let's keep adding, and you know, it's great to have a 16-to-1 ratio and everybody's happy. We're really being very mindful. I know just recently talking through what is always the big question of kindergarten. Are they going to come? Do we see the whites of their eyes? We keep being told there's many more kindergartners coming, right? But to go ahead and get somebody, and maybe the ratio then ends up being well below 18-to-1, really isn't smart. And so trying and then having to let people go later. So we are a growing district, and the urge to fill those spots is there, but being mindful of that is one part of it. The other part of it, and what we've seen in the area, is adopting deficit budgets, but then in April shutting down all purchase orders and filling that gap by then saying we're gonna cease purchasing. We are still operating on a September 1st budget, and so we're always mindful to make sure we have startup for those folks, because we're not starting the new budget in June. But I think that speaks to what you're asking about, is us just being very mindful and looking along the way to make sure we're not overextending in a time of growth, so that when it does get tight or we get a surprise from the legislature. And that was the thing that concerned me on Friday, is hearing the three representatives that were there Friday morning talking about not necessarily being able to sustain what they've committed to. And with a over $19 billion surplus, that's a little scary to hear. So I think, you know, staff here would tell you we're very mindful of being cautious about spending. We want to serve the needs of the kids, but we also don't want to be in a place where we're looking at a reduction in force.
Two questions. The first one I think I know the answer to. So our M&O rate kind of goes down pretty rapidly after this year, and I'm assuming that's because they're anticipating the property values to go up, and so the state's going to balance that out with compression.
Well, I'm calculating in a 9% increase now.
Oh, so you're calculating an increase, not a decrease.
I'm calculating a 9% increase in property value.
Okay.
Over the
And so
next
that is the compression
few
that we're
years,
seeing
and
now.
that's why the tax rate is coming down.
Because they're going to balance that out.
But that's also some compression. That's the compression that's coming in. So
Okay.
that's all that is with property taxes, our property values going up, that compression kicks in.
Right,
So-
because the state's going to, they're going to keep the homeowner where they're at. They're not going to move them.
Yes, and that's one of the things we have to watch, yes.
My second question is, and this is something I think that would be helpful in answering everybody else's question, or the question that Joel just asked in terms of this. Most of the time, historically, you're not spending, and it's what you said. I would be interested to see over the last, say, 5 or 6 years, what percentage of our budget we actually spent. Because most districts, you don't spend 3 to 4%. I mean, somewhere between 2 and 4% of what you budgeted, you don't actually spend.
And
So
what
you
I-
may budget for the deficit, but it would just kind of show and maybe make people
Sure.
feel a little bit better
And-
about.
And what I can do is, I would compare it to what we started with as an opening budget.
Right,
versus
your
not-
opening budget compared to your ending.
Not what our ending budget was. And
Yeah.
I say that only because a lot of times, okay, this is me. I will do it, if I can do a budget amendment that gives me some cushion for surprises, because I'm always leery of surprises hitting me at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So if I can give myself a cushion to make sure all those accounts are covered, that's why I would say we would compare it to that beginning, that opening budget.
And I think everybody does that, because you're budgeting for worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actually what we spend,
Right.
you know, in a year basis, we may adopt a small deficit, but
Right.
in the end, you're gonna actually probably come out ahead because of that. I would just be curious to see what
Well,
that
and
looked like for Navarro
for the last couple of years, though, we've also come out ahead because of the number of students, our student growth has been higher than what we expected.
Right.
And I will say this, for the next, that 5-year projection, this including next year, 26, 27, this year, I took his fall projection and his spring projection and averaged, took the average between those two. Because he dropped it a little in the spring, which I think a lot of us were a little surprised that he took it down like he did. So I took the average for each one of those, in each one of those years, just took the total and divided by, between fall and spring and divided by 2 and said, that's my enrollment numbers that I'm gonna shoot for. So.
Yeah, we can provide
Yeah,
that
I mean, it's all in
data.
a projection. I'm just curious what our budget to our actual looks like.
I can go back and look past in the last several years and come up with that number.
Absolutely. And to your point, yeah, I mean, you're not necessarily filling every transportation position as much as we try. So those are on the books as being budgeted for,
Absolutely.
but they're not actually hired, so therefore you cover that cost. So if you're looking at that 28,966, that's easily covered in something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's great. We can share that data in the Friday memo for them so they can see that.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Paul. We're going to move on to 8, consent agenda. Any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have Dr. Lacey Gosh making the motion and Dan Reinhardt seconding. All those in favor? The motion passes 5-0 with Becky Stevenson, Joel Frederick, Donna Gillum, Dr. Lacey Gosh, and Dan Reinhardt approving. We will go into closed session. It is now 6:32. 6:58. I was like,
Wait a minute, that's the meeting ever.
Sorry, we powered on. We should be fine.
It is 7:42 and we are back in open session. There is no action to vote. There's no possible.
Good job.
Way to go, Donna.
Apologize. We have nothing more to say. Close the meeting at